Tao Tao's gaze settled on Jacob, and she calmly told Jacob that he should leave the group. Just moments ago, Jacob looked confident. He was certain that Tao Tao would surely choose him. Yet against his expectations, she responded with words that left him speechless. He wondered if he had misheard. He questioned Tao Tao whether she didn't want to enter the Creation Academy. He then warned the party that if he left the team, everyone's trial would end on the spot. Tao Tao looked at him. Everyone here wants to enter the Creation Academy, including herself, but perhaps Jacob had forgotten her profession. Tao Tao was an elven knight. Knights have their own creed. Without Lin, they would never made it up this far. Asking Lin to step down was something she couldn't bring herself to do. Jacob sneered coldly, warning Tao Tao to not regret her decision before leaving the group. Lin slowly stood up, suggesting that everyone get ready to enter the dungeon. Tao Tao was taken aback. What is going on? What does Lin mean by preparing to enter the dungeon? Lin surely knew both sides are still fighting over the entrance, and nobody from either side could approach the dungeon. As Lin stood up, Ning Yi Yi followed suit. Ning Yi Yi giggled while trying to pull Tao Tao up. Tao Tao looked puzzled. She questioned how could they enter. Oliver and Emma were equally perplexed, but got up to follow Lin. Lin walked towards the dungeon entrance with Ning Yi Yi hopping and skipping behind. She seemed to have unwavering faith in Lin. Tao Tao tells herself, if things go south, they can just come back. With her around, they were at least safe. The Sakura Empire probably wouldn't dare to kill anyone. The group of 5 suddenly approached the dungeon, immediately drawing the attention of the people from the Sakura Empire. They began to shout and curse, warning the group not to take another step. Professionals from the Sakura Empire yelled out, with their swords drawn and weapons raised high. In an instant, everyone had their weapons at the ready. Lin, however, wasn't bothered continuing to walk towards the dungeon. Tao Tao's heart raced. Holding her shield up, Oliver and Emma were also extremely tense. Only Ning Yi Yi seemed unfazed, saying, "Don't worry, it'll be fine." Everyone from the Hidden Dragon Squad recognized Lin. He was the summoner who had diverted the murlocs for them earlier. Had it not been for Lin's summoned creature earlier, they wouldn't have made it here. Although they weren't sure what Lin planned to do, the majority chose to protect him. They readied their weapons, preparing for another battle. Jacob sneered, "Idiots! Are you all seeking death?" Seeing Lin disregard the warnings, the Sakura Empire launched their attacks. Tao Tao raised her shield without hesitation, ready to defend her party members. At that very moment, Lin pointed forward. Whoosh! Dozens of skeletal warriors instantly appeared around him. Over a dozen skeletal warriors formed a protective circle, safeguarding the group and deflecting all incoming attacks. Everyone was stunned. They couldn't believe Lin could summon so many skeletal warriors and that the enemy's attacks felt so harmless against them. The group of 5 ignored the relentless assaults from the Sakura Empire's professionals. As Lin and the party moved closer to the dungeon step by step, the professionals from the Sakura Empire charged at them again. Yet, Lin ignored them and calmly chose the nightmare-level difficulty. The 5 suddenly disappeared at the entrance of the dungeon, along with the skeletal warriors. Tao Tao looked at Lin, finally breathing a sigh of relief. But without a damage dealer, what were they to do now? Ning Yi Yi giggled, telling her to just trust in Lin. His skeletal warriors are very powerful. At this point, they had no choice but to take Ning Yi Yi's word for it. Tao Tao said she would try to block the mobs and asked Emma to handle the healing. Emma patted her chest, reassuring her, while Oliver began to apply buffs. But by then, Lin was already moving forward. As everyone was still preparing, they suddenly saw a system notification. Defeated level 21 elite Murloc warrior, XP gained 10,000. Obtained 10 fish scales. Oliver and Emma, who were still in the process of buffing, were startled by the sudden notification. Then, turning their heads, they saw a fallen elite Murloc warrior lying in a pond ahead. Tao Tao's eyes widened, looking at Lin with disbelief. She was the only one who had seen what happened. Monsters in the nightmare dungeon, even with the perfect team set up, would take them several minutes to defeat. Yet she saw a few skeletal warriors go up, and with a few strikes, the monster was dead, almost instantly. Tao Tao was still processing what had happened. Ning Yi Yi, however, laughed as she reiterated how Lin's skeletal warriors are amazing and followed suit. Oliver shouted, "I haven't finished buffing!" Tao Tao shook her head. Never mind that now, urging everyone to hurry up and follow. The skeletal warriors relentlessly unleashed their rampage strikes at the forefront, instantly slaying any monster that came in their path. Tao Tao had never imagined that clearing a dungeon could be this effortless. Every time they embarked on a dungeon, she was the most fatigued. Being a knight, she had to stand in the front lines, constantly vigilant of each attack from the monsters. She had to hold the monsters' aggro firmly while also ensuring her teammates were protected. Unlike now, where all she had to do was follow from behind and essentially do nothing. Oliver and Emma shared the same sentiments. After walking through the corridor for quite some time, they finally reached its end. A vast cavern appeared before them. Suddenly, Ning Yi Yi spotted a dark shadow in the water and cast a detection spell. It was the Queen's pet snake, Elite Boss. A 30-meter-long python appeared, its stats astoundingly high, far surpassing the Goblin King that Lin had encountered previously. It even matches the stats of the skeletal warriors. Without hesitation, Tao Tao looked to Lin, indicating she'd take the aggro of the monster. But Lin stopped her, saying there was no need. While none of them made a move, the skeletal warriors had already charged forth. Lin still didn't summon more skeletal warriors. In his eyes, the existing skeletal warriors were more than sufficient. One after another, the skeletal warriors leaped towards the colossal python. The python surged upwards, its massive tail sending several skeletal warriors flying. This was the python's first skill, Whiplash. The python's agility was unexpectedly impressive. No skeletal warriors could land a hit on it. The python swiftly slithered around the cave, its massive tail constantly whipping and sending the skeletal warriors flying. Tao Tao was growing anxious as she watched, but Lin reassured her. A soft glow emitted from his palm as he gently pointed towards the python. It was Lin's newly acquired skill, the Slow Curse. Suddenly, as if a massive red chain appeared on the python's body. In an instant, the python's speed was reduced by half. This time, the skeletal warriors easily captured the python. The swords and axes in their hands descended furiously, slashing hard against the python's scales. The python cried out in pain repeatedly. Tao Tao instantly recognized it as a curse skill, to which Lin nodded in confirmation. Powerful summoning creatures and curse debuff skills. What kind of profession is a necromancer really? Tao Tao wondered to herself. Deprived of its speed advantage, the python was now forced into head-on combat with the skeletal warriors. Suddenly, the python initiated another skill, Death Coil. While a few skeletal warriors were tightly constricted, bone-cracking sounds could be heard far away, but they weren't severely damaged. The python then spat out venom, which splashed onto the skeletal warriors. However, the venom was ineffective against undead creatures. The python tried everything but remained helpless against the skeletal warriors. Minutes later, one of the skeletal warriors pierced through the python's head. The python let out a piercing screech and had a look of defiance as it slowly collapsed. System alert: defeated the level 23 Queen's pet snake. Experience gained 50,000. Acquired silver-grade armor, snakeskin armor. Acquired intermediate monster core. Tao Tao stared at the system notifications, then incredulously turned to Lin. Is it over already?
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Lin nodded in agreement, but Tao Tao and the others were still in a daze, taking a moment to understand the situation. Ning Yi Yi's laughter radiated with joy. The more impressive Lin is, the happier she becomes. She urged everyone to snap out of their daydream and catch up with Lin. When Tao Tao and the group finally came to their senses, they hurriedly followed suit. The cave reeked of fishy smell, making the girls cover their noses as they moved deeper. On the other side of the cave, a captivating scene appeared before their eyes. Ahead lay a magnificent palace. It was the Mermaid Queen's palace. The atmosphere here was drastically different than the cave. It was much pristine and orderly. From where they stood, All the way to the palace's entrance, squads of Murloc guards could be seen patrolling. Each squad consisted of 3 elite Murloc soldiers. These Murloc soldiers were clad in armor and wielded weapons. Ning Yi quickly counted them, realizing there were 60 squads in total, amounting to a force of 180 elite Murloc soldiers. Cao Cao recalled in the past, their tactic was to carefully target monsters lurking in the corners, luring them bit by bit for a thorough cleanup. It was a slow and strenuous process, but it was safer that way. Now, everyone turned their gaze to Lin. Ning Yi inquired, with so many monsters, what should they do? However, seeing the horde, Lin was secretly thrilled. The more monsters, the better. He pointed forward, and suddenly, all the skeletal warriors surged forth. Their sudden appearance immediately drew the attention of the Murlocs. At that moment, a detection spell was cast, revealing the attributes of these Murloc soldiers. While the elite Murloc soldiers had impressive strength and vitality, compared to the skeletal warriors, they were still weak. Soon, large numbers of the elite Murloc were rounded up by the skeletons. The skeletal warriors unleashed their rampage strike, and the Murloc soldiers retaliated with their abilities. When their skills clashed, it was no surprise that the skeletal warriors emerged victorious. "Cover your ears," Lin whispered to Ning Yi, who quickly did so. Cao Cao and the others were still clueless about what was happening when a thunderous explosion nearly knocked them off their feet. Then came several more deafening explosions echoed. It was Lin's corpse explosion. After a series of thundering explosions, Cao Cao and the group were left in shock by the rapid system notifications that flashed before them. All of the elite Murloc soldiers had perished, granting them a vast amount of experience and loot. It was the first time Cao Cao and the others had experienced the thrilling sensation of rapidly gaining experience points. They were all visibly exhilarated. At that moment, amidst the sounds of explosions, the grand entrance of the Mermaid Queen's palace slowly opened. Along with the brilliance emanating light from inside, out appeared the Mermaid Queen herself. Despite her towering presence, the beautiful Mermaid Queen retained an elegant presence. Ning Yi found herself locking eyes with the Queen, her pupils losing focus. Unconsciously, she began to drift towards the Mermaid Queen. Lin quickly grabbed her and pulled her back. But it wasn't just Ning Yi. Cao Cao was also affected. A skeletal warrior blocked Cao Cao's path. 2 more skeletal warriors simultaneously blocked the path of Emma and Oliver. Only Lin and Oliver seemed unaffected. Emma, gritting her teeth through the pain, exclaimed, "It's a temptation spell!" Swiftly, she cast a skill, and streaks of light enveloped the party. Regaining her senses, Ning Yi blurted out, "What happened to her?" Cao Cao shivered, her eyes refocusing, questioning, what just happened? Emma turned to the Mermaid Queen, telling them that the Mermaid Queen had a passive temptation spell. Only Lin and Oliver were not affected. Had it not been for Lin, they would have walked straight to her and been wiped out. Lin, Oliver, possessing strong, high spiritual attributes, remained immune to the Mermaid Queen's temptation spell. The Mermaid Queen glanced at her fallen elite Murloc soldiers and suddenly let out a piercing scream. The once beautiful Mermaid Queen transformed into a terrifying visage. Her scream stirred tumultuous waves, and a fierce wind began to howl. Cao Cao observed the Mermaid Queen's insane attributes. In a conventional raid, defeating her could take hours, if not longer. However, right now, she couldn't even begin to predict what would happen next. Lin has completely shattered her established understanding of any professionals. The skeletal warriors struggled against the raging winds. Cao Cao wasn't sure how long the skeletal warriors could hold. The scene reminded her of a pack of wolves surrounding a mighty lion. The Mermaid Queen, wielding her trident, launched relentless attacks on the skeletal warriors. From the surging waves, several skeletal warriors sustained severe injuries. One, struck directly by the trident, was instantly slain. Cao Cao gripped her shield tightly, feeling that her turn to join the fight was soon. She asked Oliver to grant her a buff, then turned to the others, telling them to prepare for battle once Lin's skeletal warriors couldn't hold out any longer. Lin said softly, "No need." A soft glow emanated from his palm. He used his skill, Slow Curse. A red chain appeared on the Mermaid Queen, reducing her speed by half. Sensing the curse, she let out another ear-piercing scream. This time, her tidal surge skill was stronger than ever. A radiant azure light illuminated the palace as massive waves swept in, scattering the surrounding skeletal warriors instantly. Cao Cao looked towards Lin, suggesting he call back his skeletal warriors so they could step in. Lin recalled the injured ones, then pointed a finger. A chilling wind howled, revealing a sea of darkness in front. He unleashed the remaining 87 skeletal warriors. As soon as they appeared, they charged towards the Mermaid Queen. "There are so many of them. How can there be so many summoned creatures?" Oliver and Emma began to question. Only then did they realize that Lin hadn't deployed all his summoned creatures earlier. He had only dispatched a fraction of them. Ning Yi looked at Lin, thinking to herself, "Lin has grown stronger, much stronger." Nearly 100 skeletal warriors launched an onslaught on the Mermaid Queen. They relentlessly cast rampage strikes, battering her repeatedly. The Mermaid Queen suffered deep cuts and wounds, her screams echoing constantly. Her trident whirled frantically, and she darted around erratically. Under the effect of the slow curse, her speed was halved, making it impossible to shake off the skeletal warriors. Suddenly, her scream pierced the air. The Mermaid Queen activated her skill once again. This time it was the Queen's Lament. Emma hurriedly used the skill, hoping to cancel out the Mermaid Queen's skill, but this time it did not have any effect. Her level was too low to counter the Mermaid Queen. However, Lin assured her it was fine. Lin knew that the skeletal warriors lacked emotions and fear, and the skill does not affect them. The blades and axes of the skeletal warriors never ceased their assault. Finally, with one last scream of anguish, the Mermaid Queen fell to the ground. Experience gained 80,000. Obtained Silver Tier Weapon. Mermaid Queen's Sword. Obtained Silver Tier Weapon. Mermaid Queen's Staff. Obtained Mermaid's Tear. The description of the Mermaid Queen's Sword was a level 20 Silver Tier weapon. It granted 50 strength and 50 vitality, and it also increased the power of warrior-type skills by 10%. Mermaid Queen's Staff was also a level 20 Silver Tier weapon, granting 50 spirits and 50 vitality and increasing the power of mage-type skills by 10%. Ning Yi jumped in excitement. They had completed their trial mission. They were one step closer to the Creation Academy. Cao Cao smiled and said, "As long as they complete a few more trial missions and level up a bit more, they will be able to enter the Creation Academy." She then followed up saying they owe a lot to Lin this time. Without him, they probably wouldn't have been able to complete the trial. Emma agreed, and then whispered while saying Jacob was the absolute worst. Oliver said, "Don't even mention that guy. They should never team up with someone like him in the future." Cao Cao gritted her teeth. She despised people like Jacob the most. Lin quickly calculated the time. He turned to Ning Yi and asked if she had any cooldown amulets. Ning Yi's eyes sparkled, instantly understanding Lin's intention. Everyone else also looked at Lin and understood his train of thought.